Good evening YouTube, what's cracking off? Asmid here, and today I'm going to bring you the first in my series of videos on race guides for Total War Warhammer 2, beginning today with the Dark Elves. Now, this high level review of the Dark Elves is applicable to campaign only, so it's only Mortal Empires or Eye of the Vortex. So if you are playing multiplayer, this doesn't necessarily apply because you can make a lot of things work in multiplayer. I also just want to say as well, this advice and information applies at all difficulty levels. Personally, I play this game at hard because I find it enjoyable that way. However, hopefully this information should help you whether you're an easy player or even a very experienced player. Today we'll be discussing an overview of the pros and cons for the Dark Elves, their key race mechanics, the campaign playstyle, their battle playstyle, and we'll just be summarising all of that. So getting started then with their pros and cons. So the Dark Elves, they've got a very powerful economy supplemented by this slave system. Now, having said that, one of their cons is also due to the slave system because they can get pretty bad early game public order penalties. They've got excellent recruitment mechanics in the form of Black Arcs, which we will go into later. And they've got an excellent roster of units right across the board. They've got good monsters in the form of War Hydras and Dragons. They've got decent melee infantry in the form of Blackguard of Naggarond and Hargoneth Executioners. And they've got good missiles, obviously, that their forte is missiles in the form of Dark Shards and Shades, and magic as well. The main laws of magic that are very powerful they've got access to is the Law of Shadows and the Law of Fire, and they can also get knowledgeable traits. But we'll go into that later. So excellent roster, basically. One of the things that does hamper them is the loyalty system. So the loyalty system does only really apply to 3 races. Unfortunately, Dark Elf is one of those 3 races. So it's not the best, but it's not the worst either. And they do have very powerful legendary lords as well that can actually buff the rest of the faction. So overall then, the Dark Elves are a very strong, robust race that pretty much is a jack of all trades, and they excel in most fields. So, key faction mechanics then. So in terms of one of their main faction mechanics is their powerful economy, aka the slaves. Now, the slave system provides a ridiculous amount of wealth. It works by capturing casualties post-battle. Now, that could include settlement battles, siege battles, and just land battles on the open field, or even naval battles. What I find useful with slaves is, so you have this little slave menu here that it tells you how much slaves is in all of your provinces across the board. Now, personally, what I like to do is put all my slaves into one province, because what you can do is build buildings in that province that massively boost the amount of income you get. So as you can see, I've pretty much got, there's a few percentages here and there, but 51% of my slaves are all located in the Broken Lands. You can do this using these buttons here to request additional slaves, to receive slaves, that's just a default stance, and then to no more slaves, to stop getting any further slaves in your province. Now, I've done that one should be that as well. I've done that for every single province apart from the Broken Lands, because I want all my slaves going there. Now, in that province, I've built buildings that increase the income from slaves by 25%, increase the income generated by 100 slaves, reduce the decline rate, and reduce the public order penalty for them. So what I find for the slaves is, if you put them all in one province, you can massively start exponentially boosting your income. The other faction mechanic that are unique to, the race mechanic that are unique to the Dark Elves is names of power. Now, it is possible for every Dark Elf Lord that's non-legendary to obtain one of 3 names of power. Martial, which increases the combat abilities of the Lord. Revered, which increases the Lord's army. And Aristocratic, which either increases the province or the faction for that Lord. So personally, I find Revered Name of Power the best because you can get some really excellent abilities through it. I'll show you in a second. Martial is not that good. From time to time, I do find Aristocratic can be very powerful. However, just because how powerful the Dark Elf race already is, I don't find Aristocratic to be that great. But with the revered name of power, you can potentially get names of power like Shadow Dart, which is an excellent, probably the best name of power for the Dark Elves. And the way it works is it takes a unit that's really powerful already for the Dark Elves, like the Shades, and it gives them extra range, extra recruit rank, and makes them all cause fear. So turning that army of potentially nearly all Shades, or most Shades, into an absolute beast. Moving on then, they also have unique rights. They're nothing too special. Sacrifice to Anathema is unique to Loki Felheart, but these other three are standard across the board. Personally, I find the useful ones are the Sacrifice to Authority and the Sacrifice to Cain. I won't read out the actual buffs here, you can see them here, but Sacrifice to Cain is good for just quick income really quickly, and if you've got public order penalties, then Sacrifice to Authority can also help as well. For Loki Felheart, Anathema is excellent, but you won't be getting that for every single faction. And then finally, in terms of their main key faction mechanics, the Black Arcs. The Black Arcs are excellent. So they're basically floating settlements that can go around recruiting units, and anyone within that dashed line that you can see here around them, that circumference, they can recruit any unit that the Black Arc can recruit. They also have battle bombardments as well, that we'll actually go into that later. They also have the ability to unlock be able to build any building, and through that building chain be able to unlock unique heroes like sorceresses, Canine assassins, and death hags. So that's a very good ability, and they have the option to recruit cheap armies in itself. So for example, this whole army, this 20 stack of Black Arc Corsairs, only costs 1k upkeep, and that is because the Black Arc reduces 60% upkeep for all units, as you can see here. In terms of their campaign playstyle, they have a very, in my opinion, they should have a controlled, aggressive start to begin racking up slaves, but not too expansive, because, like I said, you are susceptible to public order issues in the early game. So if you do expand far away, you might find your capital besieged by a rebellion very soon. So I would be mindful of that. In terms of ranking up, so Loki Felheart is now ranked 40 in my campaign, but personally I think the blue line is the best way to go. Like I said, slaves are the bread and butter of the Dark Elves, so getting this ability to capture 25% more casualties post battle is excellent for more slaves. So I'd take that first, and then Lightning Strike is always useful as well, and the Find Renown and Feared also great as well for the extra movement and upkeep. So blue line is definitely my first bet when ranking up lords. In terms of technology, I think that technology is one thing that the Dark Elves, there isn't anything to specifically beeline. It's completely up to you. You can start, I personally find it's nice to start off in the lower levels, the bottom level, where it boosts your faction stuff like growth, income, your casualties captured, public order, etc. There are some people that like to beeline to deadly accountability to increase their Lord recruit rank so they can get names of power quicker. That can work. There are let's just say exploit / cheeses available for that to happen. But go on, it's not necessary really. The Dark Elves are powerful enough without having to do this sort of exploit. One of the main things that all newer players should be aware of regarding Black Arcs is to make sure that they keep on growing. Now, I never build any other buildings apart from growth buildings in Black Arcs to start off with. I first of all get the main building to level 3, and then I start ranking up the growth building to get plus 15 Black Arc growth, and then I take it to 5 or usually 4 before I start building any military buildings or anything like that. Regarding the commandments then, really quickly, again, this is really up to you. Personally, I find increased slave production quota the best because it gives you that extra growth. If it's a slave province, it's also better because it gives the 10% income. But if it's a maxed out settlement like Headhunters Jungle is, and I don't need any more growth, usually I go enforced tribute payments for the extra tax rate. But go on, if you got a lot of corruption, you might want to use the Sacrifices for Cain for that Untainted. It's completely up to you and your playstyle. Before moving on to the next category then, I just want to quickly touch on the two unique units, the unique heroes, sorry, the Dark Elves have. They have the Master and they have the K-Knight Assassin. Now starting with the Master then, I find that they're good to just leave in a province. I find faction buffs a lot better than battle buffs. And if we look at this one here, so he's given Sycophantic Schemer, which you can unlock at level 6. It reduces the slave decline rate by 10% in the province, which means potentially you can get 100% slave decline rate, preventing any slaves from disappearing, making sure you've got an exponential constant increase in income. Another thing which helps boost slaves is the K-Knight Assassin, because they have this ability there to increase slave income by an extra 10%. So you get 5, 6, 7, 8 of these into a province, and you can potentially increase its slave income by 80%. In terms of battle playstyle then, like I said, they have a very powerful roster. They have the Murderous Prowess ability, which is here. Basically, in battle, there's a counter at the top, and based on how much damage you do to the enemy and the enemy does to you, this counter fills up. When it's reached its limit, its threshold, this Murderous Prowess ability activates for 90 seconds, and these are all the buffs it provides. It's a pretty decent ability. If battles are pretty much on the knife's edge, this ability usually tips the scales to the Dark Elves, so it's a decent ability. Like I mentioned in the start, they have a good roster. Dark Shards, like you can see, this was turn 106, and I'm still using Dark Shards to batter the crap out of Mazdamundi. Now, I think Dark Shards are a good early to mid-game unit. As you can see, the missile strength on this one, it's 36. It's higher than Sis of Avalon, even though the range isn't comparable. So I do think Dark Shards are good early to mid-game units, but I would replace them with Shades later on down the line. And then there are options in the form of monsters like Black Dragons and Hydras as well, which at the moment I don't have in this campaign, but I don't necessarily need them. So in terms of Doomstack units for the Dark Elves then, it's early game, like I said, it's not really a Doomstack, but it's a very helpful unit in the form of Dark Shards. Mid game you got mid to late game you got the Shades, and late game you got the Black Dragons and the Hydras. Another thing I'd point out is the Reaper Bolt Throwers are the only artillery available to the Dark Elves, but it is an extremely vital piece of artillery that they should definitely recruit. And like I said earlier, there are abilities that the Black Ops provide that can help an army in battle. So for example, any army within that area of this dashed line gets 3 of these abilities. So they get 3 bolts of spies in battle, which is bombardment, 3 Sky Cauldrons, 3 Soul Rains, and 3 Kane's Lash. So that's basically 12 bombardment abilities they can invoke in one battle, as long as they've got a Black Arc nearby. So it's a very powerful mechanic. So to summarise then, the Dark Elves, in my opinion, are a top 3 faction in Warhammer 2. They have fantastic armies and great mechanics to complement them, alongside one of the most powerful economies in the whole game. They're very fun to play, aggressive style race that comes with 3 DLCs. The Malice DLC, which is the Shadow and the Blade, the Crone DLC, which is the Queen and the Crone, and the Rakarth DLC, which is the Hunter and the Beast. The other legendary lords come with either a free DLC or a base game. In the future, I will be covering videos solely on those legendary lords and the factions. Ultimately, I will be bringing out another video where I'll be ranking them from best to worst. Now, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've liked it. If you did, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, please feel free to leave me a comment explaining why, and I'll try and improve for next time and get back to you. Thank you very much, everyone. Peace out.